So once we have the technology pieces figured out, so that we can offer as much value as possible to the people that feel inclined to come and go within. I'm going to be sharing the teaching that is over my shoulder, that has taken me 3.5 years to be able to sit here and just say, F it, I'm going for it. And so I want to welcome you to this Inner Child Peace Summit with Tim Wheatley and myself, plus fellow guests who are joining in, because none of us are as great as all of us together, and none of us are as powerful as when all of us are in one place. So today is really about collecting the soul fragments that we have lost throughout our history, which is the story of our own identity, our image, who we believe ourselves to be in this world that we live in. And so I am welcoming in more of the soulful seekers who are showing up, because so many of us have been going down rabbit holes into becoming who and whose we truly are, and remembering the power that comes from being authentically present and really connecting and being willing to be vulnerable without fear of what people will think, because judgments are going to happen regardless. And in the inner child work that we're going to be doing together over the next couple hours, it's an opportunity to really let go of some of those judgments we made against ourselves, to be able to land back present in this moment and breathe ourselves through the decision-making process, which every moment is a decision. We get to choose how we're going to react in it, or whether we're going to choose to be creative instead and respond. On that note, Tim Wheatley, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's looking forward to maybe some sunshine. Today was the first day it wasn't raining here in Vancouver, so I'm excited about that. Looking forward to maybe some warmer temperatures, though. 6 Celsius is a little bit too cold for me.
Well, we do live in an incredibly cold place in the winter, but I am thrilled to have you on to co-host today's session, where you're going to actually be guiding us on a journey to meet our inner child you've shared beforehand. So you got that ready beforehand. I'm going to deliver the goods that I have brought here on paper, in my own handwriting, instead of doing the PowerPoint that maybe looks more professional. But ultimately, I feel like right now it's an opportunity for us to blur the lines a little more, as I have done without understanding what I was doing specifically, by blending and blurring the lines between our personal, public, private, and professional lives, to make it so that how we show up in one space is how we show up in all spaces, to a varying degree, of course. You have to keep in mind how we're going to be received, but at the same time not making that be the part that we use to judge ourselves, and really take us out of the moment where we have the most power. And to know that people sometimes get intimidated by power and powerful people. So when we actually call our whole selves back to the present moment, and we are more powerful and our energy is vibing at a higher level, we have to acknowledge the fact that there will be people who are intimidated by that, people who want to come after us and take us out because we may be pushing a different agenda from what they are, when we are saying, be all that you can be, and they're saying, and, pay me to do it. And it's just like, we're here to do something totally different. We're here to say that we all are good enough and worthy by birthright. And there's nothing wrong with getting paid to receive value for what we have done. It's just every single person that is sitting here right now, we've invested thousands of hours and thousands of dollars and so much of our energy to be able to be where we are right now as we are. And we understand that as things change, the biggest investment that any of us can be making right now is in people. And so if we are able to bring ourselves back present, if we are able to be tools within that process by offering you the tool for then you to use, because ultimately you are the one that is directing the course of your future. You're the one that gets to choose whether you're going to use something that feels valuable or whether you're just going to leave that on the table as an option that you didn't choose. You choose. Choice and power are very much interconnected. So before I share a problem-solving decision-making lesson as part of my contribution for this second Inner Child Peace Summit, Tim, is there something or anything that you would like to contribute as we set up today?
Well, I think a lot of people, especially with this crisis that we're dealing with right now, we haven't had the luxury of distraction. It's a blessing and a curse. The COVID blessing and the COVID curse is that everything that we once used to simply distract ourselves from how we were feeling and our upsets are gone. And a lot of people are experiencing being locked down right now with their feelings, that they haven't actually sat there with these feelings for a very long time. I know I'm part of a men's group, and unfortunately, almost on a daily basis, one decides to leave this planet because those emotions that were distracted with football and baseball and soccer and bars and drinking and dating and Tinder, Binder, swiping right and left, it's not there. And now, unfortunately, a lot of men don't have those tools to just take one more step, the next right step. And I think that's part of the amazing work of what you're doing, is just providing a tool for just that next right step, instead of just, keep searching for the goal, always looking at the goal. The goal of bliss and peace and enlightenment isn't necessarily anything more than that one next step. And so I'm looking forward to your teaching the next right step through your process.
Amazing, thank you. And the next right step process, which is a really great name for it, is essentially, instead of reacting, doing the same thing we've done in the past now moment, it's about choosing a new creative opportunity. So basically, this was a lesson I actually learned while I was teaching it as a facilitator for St. Leonard's in London in the Time to Think program, where youth who are in conflict with the law are given training to not make those mistakes again. But what feels more obvious and relevant and useful right now is to give people who are not yet in conflict with the law the opportunity to gain skills and insights and techniques to be able to consciously maneuver the decision-making process. Because while this teaching is not actually from that expressly, it's the foundation that led me to then put this one together. And essentially, something is always going to happen. We live in a universe of cause and effect. There is an equal and opposite cause to everything. That's the law of polarity. And so we have to really understand that in this law of cause and effect, we are going to have something happen because we're beings who need to be on the move. We're beings who are creative by nature and must have a creative experience to that thing happening, but it's not necessarily conscious. So much of our life is on autopilot, and we're just going through the motions of something happens, feeling arise, thoughts come up, we react, and then we do the same thing that we always did, and we create a crappy outcome like we always do. And then we say, that's what always happens, and justify our story even that much more because it always happens, using that definitive and the universal that makes us feel like there is no doubt in our mind. We're fully convicted that our life sucks and our creative power is less than somebody else's, and we go into that comparative mode. that doesn't help us, except for reinforcing the story that is not serving us, that we know isn't serving us, that we're disliking how it's serving us, and yet we're continuing to honor by giving it our energy simply because we may not have known there was an option ulterior to that. So this is where things change. When you consciously begin to participate in the creative process, you're still going to have something happen. It always will. And you're still going to have those feelings erupt in you, which a feeling is our energetic perception and interpretation of the energies in motion that we're going to work through in the high rise of emotional awareness, that simply calls us to be mindful of the fact you don't need to go from zero to hero. You don't need to be depressed and angry and then suddenly become happy and joyful. And if you do, then if you haven't actually processed through the emotions in between those spectrums of experience, then oftentimes it just becomes the exactly the part that is like a mirror or a veil that is going to just cover up the truth. So how poignant and significant. I thought my tape was around here somewhere. So hopefully that doesn't happen again, but maybe it was just happening in that moment because it was the perfect reflection of the fact that when we go into the story, it's like everything we knew comes off the walls, and then we just are facing the thing that's showing up. And the crisis of, oh my God, I'm live and this is falling off. And we go into that story that doesn't serve us. So instead of going there, we have the thoughts come up and then we choose a new action, which just is to breathe. Breathe ourselves back into the present moment by actually calling our power back to the lower belly. Not just the upper belly that's easiest to fill, the lungs. That you can still do when you're in a contracted and fearful state, which serves no one. But when you actually instead intentionally use a reset breath to call yourself back to the present moment, and then you fill your lungs from the bottom up so that you can actually fill all of your capacity, then you're not just trying to fill halfway and then push and force and try to do something that's difficult simply because we didn't learn how to do it easier the first time, which now we do. So then we just breathe ourselves back, fully present, grounded in this moment, and then we feel the feelings that show up because they're going to show up regardless. They're just the emotions that are energies in motion meant to be on the move, but that in that moment we have the choice of either trying to suppress, compress, repress, depress, pretend don't exist when we know that they do, turning those emotions into like a helium balloon we're shoving underwater, trying to pretend don't exist, but then at the first opportunity to be distracted, of which there are many, of course, then that helium balloon pops up and makes a big splash in our world. That's just only because dysfunctional patterns would have us perpetuate that which no longer serves us. But we, as creative beings who have owned our conscious creativity, choose to instead feel those feelings and then refocus ourselves, breathe ourselves back. What do we want? Those goals. It's not about getting to the mountaintop today. It's simply about saying, okay, so I'm right here, and then the next step is going to take me to the next place on this mountain. And so I'm just going to take that next step. Even if I don't feel confident in taking that step, I'm going to trust myself to do it because I'm a warrior and I have the power. And then when we believe in ourselves enough to do that, we call our power back to the present moment. We call all of those soul fragments of that not now moment that no longer is here, and yet before we gave our power there, we call it back into ourselves like the puzzle piece that makes up our soul, which the inner child is actually a metaphor for the soul, which is why so many people that have such a youthful spirit are so joyful and innocent. It's because it's very soulful to be young and jovial and innocent, and that's our nature. But we cover over top of that with all of these stories. So once we've called ourselves back to the present moment, we can observe the thoughts. And then we can also observe the judgments about those thoughts and understand that we are not our behaviors, even if those behaviors become what define our results. That is no reflection of our actual potential or capacity. Our present results only ever reflect what we believed possible before. And now we know that there is much more that we can achieve by simply letting go of those judgments, some of which may not even be ours in the first place. And then we breathe into the discomfort and act from that grounded place. And sometimes no action is the action. But we can't choose no action from the place of staying neutral and in the middle and not picking a side. That is no way to really honor the child within that wants to know where they belong. So we have to really get clear on, if we don't choose, why didn't we choose? It's no longer, I feel, enough for us to just accept other people's BS and then to define us and our own emotional responses by saying that's the way it's always been. If it's not broke, don't fix it. These things don't really apply with the world that we're creating now as conscious co-creators, which is the reason for this series. And so once we understand all of that, then we understand we always get back to that next action point. And breath is always an option, because it's the language of the soul that comes with us from the day that we're born until the day that we leave. It's the first thing we do and the last thing we do and the only consistent thing that we do in between. So when we have that understanding and then can start to breathe into the emotions as they show up, they stop being so scary. We start to understand that our feelings are simply the interpretation of those energies in motion. And if we can get comfortable with the frequency of the feeling, which is our interpretation of that energy in motion, then we can really start using those feelings to call ourselves back to the present moment that much faster. Instead of saying, oh God, I'm angry. Instead of getting into that, feel it, and then feel how powerful we can be to move from anger to discouragement. And understanding that we're angry about something and then we don't feel like we can do anything, and that feels less powerful, just a little bit discouraging. But then you go into blaming them and you mother, and then you go into worrying about what's going to come from that kind of triggered response. And then the doubt and disappointment and overwhelm. Understanding if we can just simply learn how to ride each emotional state to a higher level, what it's literally doing is giving us permission to take the stairs instead of the elevator that taxes our energy so much more. Because if our normal state is here and love, peace, joy, bliss, knowledge, empowerment is up at the top where freedom exists in the penthouse of peace and possibility, if our normal state is here at boredom, then it's a big jump to get to there, and then it's an equally large jump to balance it out, which is what we naturally do. So if instead of making that jump, we understand that the tipping point in the functional and dysfunctional creative emotions is actually between boredom and contentment, that is when then we understand that if we find ourselves feeling bored, then that is why they say that idle hands are the devil's workshop. The devil is when evil is made to look good. And that is why boredom takes us into a downward spiral, into pessimism, frustration, overwhelm, disappointment, doubt, worry, blame, and then eventually all the way down to depression, where everything feels so heavy and you're full of grief and your heart feels shattered and you don't feel like you have any power, because it's completely powerless when you're in the basement, in the dark. When your entire world has been ripped apart as you knew it, and you stand there ready to put yourself back together as who you have become through the journey, the sacred sojourn of the soul, and yet understanding that the soul learns who it is through its emotions and the emotional states that we experience in between. So that being said, if boredom is at the top of the downward spiral, contentment is the bottom of the upward spiral, which means that if we can just simply decide to be content with where we are, then we are able to maneuver ourselves up higher. And last year, when I went through some of the lowest times in my life, my dad really was profound in his recommendation for me to make my job to be happy. And then it is to take it further and say happiness is not really actually the ultimate goal, because if it's about being happy, then we have to force ourselves into a momentum that maybe isn't sustainable. So if instead of being happy, we can focus on being joyful and make it about what we're full of, that then is when we can be mature and responsible parents to ourselves, bringing down that noble king and his kind queen to be able to actually look after us the way that the child within deserves and desires. And that is ultimately how we change our reactive patterns, by placing the C of creativity in a different order. So, Tim Wheatley, that is the piece I wanted to share on the emotional high rise of awareness and the decision-making process and how to really shift your emotional states and your reactions faster. So Tim or anyone else have any feedback on that process or how you could actually envision using it? Because that's ultimately what's going to take it from a theory into something actionable that really helps.
Well, one thing that I was looking at that was quite impressive of the work that I've done also on my family system, my family tree, my lineage, my genealogy. A lot of the steps, like the lower steps, were done by our predecessors. That we may not be at the very bottom right now, but a lot of the stuff that we've inherited, now we're understanding that it's actually through genetics and then encoded in our DNA and RNA. A lot of the mistaken beliefs of our predecessors, our ancestors, we still have. So part of when you're taking these steps up, what I've noticed is, right, but my great grandfather was the one that was suffering with some of those lower suppressed, depressed emotions. And so when I'm taking a step forward, up the ladder here, what I'm feeling is this tension of my past. And ultimately, it's not my past, but it's encoded in my DNA, that I'm actually feeling the pressure of having to pull my grandfather, my great grandfather, up these stairs with me. And I think part of what they were talking when they say, when the work that you're doing now is to transcend the generations both forward and past, I think what we're doing is we're sometimes the difficulty in transcending some of the lower vibrating emotions is that we're having to carry the weight of our ancestors with us until we come to an understanding that that's not our stuff. Like there are components of loss in my family tree that I had no understanding. What I was reliving wasn't mine, it was theirs. And in traditional psychology, they say what the parents don't work out, the children act out. And the Bible speaks of that is the sons are living with the sins of their father. And I think that's part of these things. So when we take steps, we also have to have compassion for ourselves, so that we don't self-flagellate ourselves, where we don't whip ourselves like, how come you're so stupid? Why can't you do this? It's like we have to have compassion, softness, and care as we take our steps up the ladder there.
Absolutely. And one of the things too there's a simple process that I often recommend that's simply 4 steps when we do feel an emotion. And it's like, is this mine? Yes or no? You feel it inside, you hear an answer, however your intuition speaks to you. It's this guide your soul hired ahead of time as the tuition your soul paid karmically for the guidance that you're able to access in this lifetime. So whether it's clairaudience or clairvisual or clairsentient or what's the other ones? It's the way that the intuition speaks to us. I didn't, which one was it, Chantal?
I don't know if that's actually the other one. I was trying to think of the other one as well.
I thought I saw you mouth it, but you were muted.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. That's why I didn't actually push the button. I was like just mouthing it so that maybe you could be like, oh, maybe that's it. But I don't know if it is. So
I tried to follow your cue,
clairaudience,
clairaudience, clairvisual, clairsentience. Clairsentience is clear knowing, and then clairaudience is clear hearing. Clairvisual is to be able to clearly see.
Yeah.
And then there is the senses as well, where you actually can feel spirit. So however it is that your soul speaks to you, I'm not necessarily an expert on that, but what I am suggesting is that you learn your own soul's language so that then you can hear or feel or know, is this mine? Yes or no? And then, can I let this go? Yes or no? Once again, we feel it. And then, will I let this go? And then, if not, why not? If not, why are we holding ourselves hostage to this pattern that is either ours and now we know it, or is not ours and now we know it? Because there's great power in knowledge that we are willing to act from the place of. Now, in terms of where you want to take us to actually meet that inner child, Tim, is that what you feel called to do next? Or
No, that'd be great. And it can go maybe back to you after. So, all right. So this is about meeting your inner child. A lot of people have spoken about this inner child work before, and whether it's not just pretending and playing or coloring or anything else like that, but it's without actually being connected to that one part. So I'm going to get into the meditation. This isn't about reliving a painful experience. It's about reviewing it and releasing it. Take it slowly, because some pain and emotions can rise to the surface while this is going on. Just realize if it happens, take a deep breath in and just allow that just to go. It'll bring you back to that state of calmness. So for that wounded part of you, and the core wound, the painful child within, for that part to come out of hiding, they got to be able to trust that you're going to be there for them. And the inner child needs to know that you're going to be supportive, that you're going to validate their emotions, whether they're upset or angry or happy or sad. Maybe they feel abandoned, neglected, or just too much. We need to provide a space for them. So now let's go and create this safe space so that you can meet that little part of you. So to begin with, that little part of you is up in the top of your brain. It's all part, but this is where we're going to first try to meet that little part today. So what I want you to do is, if you can just take a deep breath in and allow yourself just to settle wherever you are. And taking a deep breath in, I want you to, with your head still, maintain your head still, and I want you to look up. Look up as high as you can. Look up farther. Farther. Keep your eyes up there. That's it. A little bit higher, just for another second. And just allow your eyes to slowly close. Just allow your body to feel where you're sitting. Allow your body just to feel the weight. That's it. So begin by becoming aware of your breath. Consciously take a deep breath in and exhale. That's it. We're going to just do a short countdown breath to get us more connected with our body and allow us just to settle. So 10, take a deep breath in. 9, exhale. 8, take a deep breath in. 7, exhale. 6, take another breath in. And 5, exhale. That's it. 4, taking another deep breath in. And 3, exhale. 2, taking that breath in. And 1, exhale. So now let's prepare this safe place for them to visit. And with your eyes shut, now we're going to visualize that there's a staircase in front of you. Going down the stairs. You feel these stairs on your feet. You feel the solidness of them. Going down each stair, 9, 8. With each step, you're feeling more safe, more solid. 7, 6. That's it. 5. Going deeper. Now 4, deeper. 3, feeling a warm, safe feeling. 2, and 1. And on the bottom of the stairs, now you arrive on this beautiful beach, feeling safe and secure on this private beach of yours. And now, as you see the waves going in and out, in and out, in your mind's eye, you see this red wave flow, filling everywhere in your eyes. Goes out. The next wave coming over top of you, orange. Feeling safe, feeling at peace. Another wave now going yellow. Filling your body. The next wave coming over you is green. Going deeper and deeper into this relaxation. As an indigo wave of energy comes over you. And now that last purple, beautiful wave of energy coming over top of you. And now let that little part of you inside hear these following words. As in your mind, you say them as the adult that you are now, speaking to that little part of you back there. I want you to know that I'm preparing a safe place for you. In this place, you will not be violated. In this place, you will not be judged. In this place, you will be loved, honored, respected, and supported. Taking a deep breath in, and let that out. And in this place, you will be listened to, accepted, and allowed complete freedom and permission to express whatever you need to express. And here, in this safe place, you can feel whatever you need to feel. Here, you'll be comforted and understood. You have carried some beliefs and some pain for a very long, long time. And you were able to carry it for so long because of how strong you are. And you had to do it back then because you had no choice. But I want you to know something now. You have different choices now, and I am here for you. So for that inner child to come out of hiding, we must be able to trust that you'll be there for them. Your inner child needs support and a non-shaming ally, a parent to validate his upset or hers, their upset, their anger, their sadness, their aloneness, whatever it is they need, you can be there. And taking a deep breath in and just letting it out. And out of the corner of your eye, you see this little one appear. And you smile. And as little you turns and looks at you, they smile because it's been a very long, long time that they've been alone. They have been stuck alone for so long, feeling those old, yucky feelings. And as you look at that little part of the you over there, you can say, that's okay. I understand. And now we're going to help them let go now of those old, yucky feelings so that they don't have to carry it any further. So let's ask them, would you like to let go now of those old, yucky feelings? And right now, we're going to start a beautiful, beautiful bonfire on our beach. And over there, we're going to take little you by the hand and walk over close, knowing that you're safe and secure. And you can ask that little part of you, where is it that they feel that on their body? And how would they like to let go now? Let's help them by pulling that yucky, old emotion, feeling out of their body and throw that into the fire. Let the fire consume it. Let that fire burn those old yucky emotions and yucky feelings. As it slowly starts burning and sizzling away, turning into ash, you can see the sparks drifting up into the sky. Seeing those old feelings and emotions that once were stuck within you are now being drifted off into the wind, going farther, farther. Look at them go off farther, farther, farther. So far now, gone. And little you looks up and they've got a smile on their face. They're safe here. They know that. And you can always come back anytime they want. This is your private safe beach that you can access and connect with that little part of you anytime an emotional upset feels that it comes from your past. Connect with that little part of them. And all you need to do is say, that's okay. I understand. I'm here for you. So you can ask that little you, what is the one thing that they would really, really like to do today? Would they like to color? Would they like to go on a swing? Would they like to have a bath? Would they like to play with Hot Wheels? Would they want to play with Barbie dolls? Would they want to go for a walk on the beach or just watch some cartoons? And that's something that you can do with them today. So now we're going to let that little you just relax right there in the warm, safe sand on the beach. Feeling safe and secure, know that you're always there. And you can connect with them at any time. And as you turn and you start to walk towards those stairs, feeling more whole, that those old yucky feelings are gone. And as you look back, you see little you smiling, waving. Now we're going to start going back up those stairs. Getting closer, going 9, taking another step up, 8, 7. And as you look up, you see that there's a bright light at the top of the stairs, feeling safe, whole, complete. Taking another step and another. 5, 4, 3, almost at the top, 2, 1. Now feeling completely connected, feeling completely safe, feeling secure. Just allow yourself the time you take to open your eyes and come back to the room, come back to this space. That's it. And this is just one beautiful little place that inner child of yours is waiting for you at any time. You know, a lot of times people say that, you know, they feel angry, they feel upset, when actually they're not, because they're a grown-ass adult. But there is that little part of you that does. And in relationships, how often do you say, oh my God, you're acting like a 2-year-old to your spouse? And they're actually are. Their 2-year-old is acting out through them. And this is just another way of realizing we all have these components that are trapped or locked away. And it's about bringing those back to a whole and complete package. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That was awesome. I didn't know we were going to do a session here. I didn't know that you did hypnotherapy. That's kind of like,
Who's saying anything about hypnotherapy?
No, like, you know what I mean? It's not, yeah, sorry, I won't put a label on it. I'm studying it. I'm studying under Marissa Peer.
Oh, under Marissa. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I love her. I love this whole process. It's worked for me. I've done 12 sessions like this, and it's been life-changing.
One of the components that I feel is so vital that is even missing in some of Marissa's work is, if you have cut off your anger and you work back and you go back and you allow the anger to be expressed, part of what isn't corrected is some of the other qualities. When you, for example, when you cut off your anger, you cut off your passion, right? So the correction isn't about negating it. And this is the same thing. It's like, if you are upset, you go, little you, hey, little you over there, you're upset, not me. That was then, not me, not now. You shut the hell up. And it's sort of some of the, I understand, like I've known her for a long time. So we've had great discussions on it. But part of what I really love is integration of the parts that were cut off.
Yeah.
Right? Because it changes ways. People will have a natural, if they start expressing anger and that little part of them wasn't allowed to, they will naturally embrace a state of passion, because it's going to be the transcendent quality of those cut off emotions, regardless of whatever that is. And it's beautiful to see when all of a sudden somebody that was so shut down is now wide open and beautiful to express whatever it is. It's beautiful to see that transition.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Feelings are the bridge.
Yes.
feelings take us back, and if we try to separate us and the inner child, then we're just doing a spiritual bypass, which is oftentimes what happens in psychedelics, for instance, because we're bypassing the ability to go through the whole journey in order to get to the destination, which isn't to say you can't get the lessons in between by jumping, but if you don't actually face the lessons after having jumped, then you get to go through those lessons backwards. Like
Ka-tunk, tunk, 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 down those stairs right behind you. Ow, 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 ow. Yeah.
it's like like we hit the bottom. It's just like, oh, I knew better, but I didn't do better. And now I'm learning better and I'm doing my best to do better. And when you were actually doing the fire piece, I had envisioned actually it was a leech, because up when I was a kid, my grandparents built a cottage on Manitoulin Island, and so like everybody else kind of flew around and went to vacation homes or did cottage camping trips or things like that, and it was like my family just went to Manitoulin, and that was our thing. And when I was up there it was right by a lake, and so I'd walk over there and I'd spend hours turning rocks and catching crayfish and bloodsuckers with my own bare hands and minnows with nets, and that was like my favorite thing to do in the summers when we were up there for a week or two at a time. And when you brought up the visual of the beach, it took me to that moment, and then also Harrison Lake when I was in BC doing a road trip with the guy that really helped me understand I didn't love myself, because when I was on that beach with him a decade ago, when I was wanting him to go out with me and he was saying no, like we road tripped out here to BC in fact because he needed to close a chapter he had started out there. An ex-girlfriend wanted him to come back with her, and so they did, and he didn't finish the steps himself, so he went back out there to find them. And it's relevant to this workshop actually, because when I was sitting on the beach the next morning after having had the conversation where he had basically said, look, I'm really sorry, but like, no, I'm not going to date you because I need to finish my own stuff and I need to do that on my own. And the thing was, is the only reason I really wanted to date him was because it was right before I got certified as a John Maxwell team member and flew down to Florida to get that certificate. And I felt like everything was about to change for me, and it did. I moved to England and all of what came from that choice to get myself in that room. But when I was out in BC sitting on the beach that morning, I realized the only real reason I wanted him to date me was because he represented my old life and holding on to a piece of it, which for me in that moment when everything else was changing around me, I was looking for him as my old habit that I wanted to hold on to. And so I bring that in because as I was sitting there reflecting the next morning without even necessarily feeling angry with him, because I understood neither of us wanted to date each other in truth, what I realized was that when I heard him say, well, when I heard my response on my inside to his not wanting to date me, it's like, you don't love me the way I need you to. And I realized I'd heard that about every man that I'd loved and wanted to love me. And it was not me that was saying it. It was the little child that didn't feel loved the way that she needed to be. And so I share that because it was the Harrison Beach or the Harrison Lake beach front experience of when I found out that I had a lot of self-love work to do and still do, and continually we all do, because life is about reintegrating all of those aspects. And the first time that we abandoned or rejected ourselves was just simply the first pattern of that familiar circuit. Then in neuroplasticity, for instance, it's just like, if this is the destination and we're used to going to it this way, the more times we go through it this way or go to it this way, the more ingrained that pattern becomes, compared to if we give a few extra twists and curves to get there without judging ourselves, then we can actually change the wiring of the brain so it's more plastic instead of without the chemicals, plastic without the chemicals, instead of being a firm and direct. And so those stories then lead back to the leech analogy of when you had called us to envision taking something from the heart of the inner child. It felt to me, it was like a leech. And it was just like I envisioned taking this leech off, and then I was having these visualizations of like throwing this leech onto the fire. And it's just like I was actually envisioning what it would be like to be that leech getting like thrown into the flames. And it's just like, for me, I'm, destroying something or getting rid of something that no longer serves, but to the leech, I'm the demon destroyer. So it's just all about perspective.
That's Kali. That's the Hindu goddess of destruction. And the destruction is actually destroying those parts of ourselves that no longer serve us. And we do have to honor that, it was required. All of these components of which, are stuck in our brain, that now control 95% of all behavior, it does have to be destroyed. We have to take a look at it. And ultimately, that little part of them has part of the brain, which is that protector, which I explained last time, was that thalamic relay. And it's just the way our survival brain is wired, that through hypnosis and visualization, we can then access those old parts of the brain. And this is part of where people that do psychedelics as well, that thalamic gate is temporarily down. So it opens up the channel for us to go back and actually do the work. Yet we really do require the integration process of integrating. Once it's connected, connection, correction, and integration are vital. Otherwise, it just keeps popping back up and up and up again.
Absolutely. Jared, would you have anything that you wanted to share as what that was like for you? Strong and stoic man, I know. I just wonder if you had anything you wanted to share.
It's funny. I had an interesting session this morning with a woman named Ramini, and she was talking more about. So her process, she related to like super conscious versus subconscious versus our regular conscious, where we tend to make a lot of our decisions and our actions, and her work, and then what we do through this morning.
We lost you, Jared.
What I did with her was kind of just address this conscious and address a certain issue of my life. My phone's dying, and I'm in a bad spot for my Wi-Fi.
Fair.
Is that any better?
Yeah, now we can hear you again.
Okay. So anyway, long story short, what I was saying is, so you're tapping into finding out what it is that we recognize is holding us back from different leaps and different steps that we want to take. And what I realized for myself was, different boulders that were in my path that were preventing me from progressing in different areas, were things I was aware of, but that I didn't want to face and didn't really want to address. And taking a pause and stepping back, it's like, okay, well, now that I'm aware of that, obviously I can take care of it and address it, and it's not a big deal. And so my thought was, when we were going through with Tim, an immense place of peace and comfort, and just not that there wasn't anything wounded or damaged in my childhood. I have a very high, we call A6 score, so there's a lot of trauma and drama that happened in my childhood, but in spite of all that, I've always maintained a pretty positive attitude, just a perpetual positive attitude about how I approach the world and how I do things. And so just kind of thinking back to my inner child, I found that reserve of my perpetual positive attitude of, despite whatever's going on around me, I can find peace and comfort and joy in myself. And so that was just a reflection on me. And honestly, I kind of drifted off just enjoying that that peace.
You've been
So that was my experience. That's what I appreciated. So
Thank you. And when we put the time to be a 2-hour summit, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be 2 hours that we stretch out just to fill time. It's not to say that we'll end it now either. It's just to really be able to recognize the deep inner work that we're all doing. It's like the fact you've come here after doing an intense session this morning with another practitioner, that Chantal, you're learning from Marissa Peer. You did the master class yesterday. You're learning how to go through it. You're working through accountability partners to be able to go deep so you can help other people go there. Like, I think that each of us really need to recognize how much work we're really doing, even if on the outside world, people are saying, well, your bank account doesn't necessarily reflect all of this inner work that you're doing. Is it really that valuable? And it's just like, do you understand that the energetic work that we're doing when we actually sit with these emotions? Do you understand how that is actually clearing generations worth of the trauma, the drama, the dysfunction, that by nipping these root problems in the butt, we're able to actually replant a hybrid plant that actually is going to be better for generations to come. And even if we may not be able to sit underneath that oak tree we're planting today, in 25 years, somebody else will be, and they'll say, thanks to the person that planted this all that time ago. And they won't even necessarily know who we are, and it doesn't matter a thing. Like, each of us are here, and we're ants in this colony of humanity with an extra E that has all hues included, regardless of the tribal BS of any of them and all of them. And ultimately, we're going to drift off sometimes. And it's nothing to be offended about. And the fact I've got a fly happening right now is the fact flies are abundance. And then it's also distraction. And so it's like, we've got distractions. We've got energy work we're doing outside of here. We've got our own stuff. Right before this, I had the experience of somebody that I knew from my past that I had reached out to say, I'm doing this. And they came back with a hard, you're not for me anymore. Over the last year, you know, what you've been doing and how you've been doing it, not really my thing. And so goodbye. And then when I tried to reply, it was like, user not available. So it's just like interesting. But as you learn what you stand for, you are going to polarize people the way that I do too. And you can't take it personally, but you also can't deny the fact, and I won't deny the fact, that when that happened, there was a part of me that was maybe a little disappointed, maybe doubting, feeling a little worried. He wasn't wrong. It's like, I kind of went through and had those experiences of discomfort by the fact that when you do stand for something as strongly as what I do, which is really helping people come home to themselves and have these rabbit holes, which Maxwell Maltz he calls the place that you can go to at any time. That's like your portable home within yourself, that little safe space, whether it's a beach or whether it's a safe temple or wherever it is inside of us. It's just like, if we don't have that little home center that we can find and tune back into, that reconnects us to the divine that we all come from and all return to and are all individuated expressions of while we're here too. It's just like, we're really doing a disservice to not acknowledge, yeah, that hurt. That hurt the little girl inside of me that would like to be liked. You know, the people pleaser inside of me that, you know, culturally we've been trained, don't piss people off. Come on, if it's too much for them, then slow it down. But, you know, there was a few years back, like a decade ago, I ended up hooking up with this girl that I went to high school with. We weren't friends then, and I was getting my nails done. She was there. We started talking. She was going to a Buck and Doe that night. She invited me. I was thrilled to have someone to belong with, and so I went. And we were hanging out, and she was trying to get drunk so that she had liquid courage to dance, and I was ready to dance, and she had her bestie that they were so codependent and hanging back with each other to make each other feel safe, and she wouldn't let the bestie go and do what the bestie wanted to do because it was all about her and her fears. And so bestie got to stay with her. Well, then I just kind of said, hey, I'm going out. And so I started the dance floor, and other people got excited because there was finally excitement and movement in the dance floor. And then they came out too. And the reason I share this is because at the end of my having a blast and going out there and seeing them waiting to feel good enough to come out and join me, I came back and she said, you are humiliating. Like, she was so disgusted with me. She's like, I can't believe that you would do that. Like, I need a lot of liquid courage to go out and do that, and you just did it. And she made such a point of it that the part of me that cared so much and wanted to belong, which on Maslow's hierarchy, survival, safety, belonging, respect, self-actualization, belonging comes before respect of self or others. And so it was interesting because I was having a session with a healer at the time, shortly after, and I brought that situation up because I was perplexed by it, because it was like, do I actually agree to tone myself down and not be willing to go out there and wait for her to be able to be ready and be drunk enough to come and start the party because she needed to be the focus of the one that was starting the party, when I don't really care. I just want to be part of the party. And if I happen to have to start some movement in order to have the experience that I'm looking for, so be it. And the healer that I had went to basically said, Laura, like, you're just too much for some people, and a lot of women are, and you just need to tone it down, and you just need to feel, don't be so out there. Like, just kind of slow it down and make other people feel more comfortable. And it's like, I'm sorry, I'm a bull in a china shop sometimes. When energy needs to move and nobody else is doing it, like, bam, baby, let's go. So for me, when that healer said that, I lost respect for the one that I had given so much credit and credence to over the years, because she was my Reiki master when I was 16 and got trained in the first degree. And, I learned from her, and I relied on her intuitive channelings and lessons that she gave me when I was paying her. And what I thought so fascinating in that moment was, it was my realization that just because you're good at something doesn't mean you're always doing that something, and that your opinion on all things is of a higher nature. Because in that moment, I knew I was talking with her inner child that had been told, don't push it too much, don't. And she had abided by those rules and played less than, and she even told me that in that session. And when she then told me to take the advice that wasn't working well for her either, the inner child in me was like really confused. And the older part of me was really pissed off. And then the part in between that and 10 years, 11 years later, when I look back and say, when we know better, we do better. And we know to discern. I say I went to England and lived there for 3.5 years, and I'm so grateful for all the experiences I gained from being with a really fantastic partner that stretched and grew me and started as my mentor and my teacher. And basically, one of the things that I say that whole experience taught me above all else is when to know what's mine, and when to know that someone is projecting their stuff onto me, pretending it's mine. And so in that moment, while the lesson of that nature I learned in England, I had already started learning that lesson in an experience like that, when I was being given bad advice by somebody that was trying to keep me safe. Being aware, but not necessarily honoring the fact none of us make it safely out of life alive. None of us make it safely out of life undamaged if we're willing to play full out. And if we're not, why not? Like, I understand we have generations and lifetimes where we've been the ones that got ripped off of something and thrown onto the pile of burning embers and became the dried up lynch. But we've really got to be able to honor what we need in the moments when we've got to go somewhere else or do something else. We've got to honor when somebody gives us bad advice and it doesn't resonate, and so we choose otherwise. When we find really good techniques and tools that we want to use or that we want to tweak and change to make it ours and then use it, whatever you need, just understand what's yours would be my biggest thing for today.
You know, one of the things is fascinating is that Reiki teacher was an amazing soul teacher. The lesson that she taught you was she can't teach you what you need to learn. And the step that you took in that moment split two ways. One, you would never be who you are right now, and you would never have gone through, and you could have played small for the rest of your life. And like a lot of people, there's a level of comfort and misery that people take. And the beautiful thing is, the saying is, it's easier to be with the devil you know than the angel you haven't met yet. And so with each of these things, there are times where if you're truly in tune and connected, you can say, I can't teach you the lessons that you need to learn. And part of being a master teacher is actually understanding what is yours and where it comes from, and where that one person may or may not have really been coming from that wounded part of her that wants to play small and may still be playing small. But it's nice to see when you take that one seed and go, thank you, but no, and you move on. And again, it's where all of us are. If we look back in our past, one of the things I've always said is, you must love every one of your exes before you can love the person that you're with. Otherwise, you're not in love with them. You're only in lust. And again, that's part of where people have said, that's too much. I can't love her for what she did to me, or I can't love him for what he did to me. And it's like, well, then the lesson isn't learned, because it could have been a soul lesson, not a earthly lesson, but a soul lesson of what they're here to guide and assist you with your learning, your growth. And maybe you were cracked free just a little bit, and they came and just pulled off a little bit more shell, and it sure hurt at the time. But again, we've turned into amazing teachers, all of us. And we're I think it comes down to you either teach your way out of the struggle or you teach your struggle. So it's beautiful for me to watch you. As a classic example of this is teaching your way out of your struggle. So thank you.
My pleasure. And I haven't known another way to do it. It took me all of the time that it did to sit here and be who I am, and to say, I don't care how many people are on this. And I'm grateful that Chantel, you're here, and Jared, you've shown up, and everyone that is plugged in on Facebook with us live right now. I appreciate you sincerely. But there is a deeper part of me that all of these experiences has trained me to not be attached to that as an outcome, and to simply say, we're doing this, we're going to add tremendous value, and we're going to give it the very best that we have, and we're not going to charge anything for it, because what we want to do is give you the tools that we learned the hard way. Because in all of those years, while I went through what I did to get to this place where some people choose to not be affiliated and other people want to be super close, it's like what all of that taught me was who I am, what I stand for, it's like there are souls that are literally contracted to betray us, that our soul, before we got here, contracted with for them to give us the ultimate lesson that only a soul that loved us so much would be willing to possibly be disliked enough to give someone. And I know I've betrayed some people myself, and I would love to have played things differently, but some things are just predestined in the way they fall together, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, how did that be what happens, honestly? But as we're going through all of this, we feel like a friggin' mess. And it's like I was having a conversation with somebody a few months back, and at the time I was really my turning point was really in February, which I'm grateful for, because it was right before the whole pandemic kicked off and things started to really become clear as to what's going on here. And it was like February, I was in a super low space, and I was still repeating the pattern of giving my power away and offering it to people that looked like they had it together, because I felt like I was a total mess. And I was having this conversation with this guy that was saying that, you know, he's been told that he's the Messiah. And anybody that says that, like, there's the whole Messiah complex that we have to be aware of. But beyond that, when he was saying it, it was kind of like the thing that came to me in that moment that I've held on to and shared many times since is it's like, we really do only become the Messiah when we have actually inverted the M to make it the mess I am became the one that had a higher perspective of the mess, and then is the Messiah who can deliver others through it because we walked that without getting lost in the mire of all that we're walking through in the process. Because the way that you said, you know, thank you for everything that you went through to sift, and as we thank each of us for having done. It's like for a long time I was looking outside of myself for all the power that I had on the inside, but it was just all veiled over. And I thought I was way less qualified because I still felt like a mess when other people seemed to have it together. And then I found out that those people that I thought had it together were just like swans that were gliding over the river, but underneath it was like scrambling feet, frantically kicking, right? Like they make it look graceful, but underneath they're struggling too. And it's like, please be clear that just because somebody is in front of you, whether it's us or whether it's anyone else, please understand we're all human, that we all have these children on the inside that are having tantrums, that are freaking out, that are having their opinions that they may not say or show, but that are there. And so everybody that is showing up seemingly having arrived, we just may have arrived to another pinnacle in the climb to enlightenment of being able to embody more light because we've cleaned out more of the corners and cast out more of the shadows. But those shadows still live there. Like even when that leech gets incinerated on the embers, the ashes are still in the kingdom.
Yeah, it doesn't just vanish and disappear. A lot of part of reintegrating that part is when those come up, we honor them. We don't suppress them, depress them, or repress them. We honor those emotions, and we realize, oh, that's where that is. And within a split second, you can connect in with that little part of you, honor him or her, and say, that's okay. I understand. I ain't going anywhere. I got your back. And then all of a sudden, it's those emotions that little part of you were feeling. Now you can, when you integrate that into the current life and this third dimension realm, you can then for yourself be accountable, responsible, and take ownership for your behavior, your thoughts, your actions, your deeds. But at the same time, the other person who may have initiated that spark of upset, they as well need to be accountable, responsible, and take ownership for their behavior, their thoughts, their actions, and their deeds. So I think that's part of where we honor, but we don't discount or condone behavior that isn't acceptable.
Mm-hmm. And when you were saying that, I felt like it would be super funny, at least to say to my own inner child and the inner children, inner soul fragments that I'm calling back as I'm going. It's just like you say, it's just like, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. It's like, make it a joke. It's just like, don't worry, I can't go anywhere. Like, we're together whether or not, you know?
I'm stuck here anyway.
We're together whether we like it or not. So let's just love each other and work through this, because it's not going to change. The only thing that can change is our relationship. So let's just work on that, honey.
Nice. Yeah, good.
Is there anything else that feels that would be especially beneficial to bring into today? There's 40 more scheduled minutes, but I'm not attached to filling those unless there's a reason to do so. I'm going to just check over on Facebook as well while you're thinking.
You know, just one funny story was once I was doing a counselor training program, and I used to always just sit here and do this with my goatee. And my girlfriend at the time was taking the counseling course the next year after me, but she had watched me do so many counseling sessions. She was sitting there and she was going like this. And I'm like, oh, honey, you don't have a goatee. You know, it was just very interesting. And looking back at all of the different modalities that I've done over the years, I come to see how a lot of them were just telling that little part of me, never mind, never mind, never mind, never mind, never mind. And I use the analogy. I say, you can't put a pretty white light over an outhouse and pretend it's not full of shit. I still know what it's full of. And that's where doing a lot of work with hypnosis, NLP, visualization, traditional psychology, it really is now starting to overlap. And the recent work on neuroscience is actually showing all parts that we were working on in all of these modalities is trying to get to the same place. And that same place is as was mentioned earlier, the ACEs, that adverse childhood experiences, childhood trauma, PTSD, is all in the same part of the brain. And now we're seeing that's where little you has been hanging out the whole time. And it's been beautiful to be able to work with clients and see how that inner child gets reintegrated and how on a regular basis they maintain and build their relationship. Because just like, that's it, just because the fire has gone off once, it is still in the kingdom. And before, how many times did your parent tell you to come up to the table for dinner? Once, right? And then that was it. No, as a kid, it was constantly coming up for it, being called up for dinner, time for dinner, time for dinner. Well, it was for me anyway. And I think that's part of the same thing, is when that little part gets upset again, we're just constantly there to remind it. And then all of a sudden it does switch. And, some of the deeper work is actually going into the correction aspect of that. Again, that's a different show and a different time that we'll get into on that.
Speaking of which, the next time we will be coming together for an Inner Child Peace Summit will be the first Tuesday of December at 7 till 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we would love for you to be able to join us on the first Tuesday night of the new month and final month of a crazy year. And so as we are called to wrap today up and say thank you very much for everything that has been offered in today's session, and very much appreciate the contributions of everyone who has shown up here. So it's always lovely to have people in the live view too. And when this is recorded and then edited, it's posted over to YouTube for those to view who weren't able to join us live. And we open up the 2-hour time slot because we want to give this we want to make this an opportunity for people to actually contribute. Because as much as Tim and I may be the co-hosts of this show, it very much is an opportunity for all of us to come together and work on ourselves in a safe community, in a safe space, to have consistency in coming together, which is why we'll be doing it every 2 weeks. We're just switching over to evenings on Tuesdays just for scheduling purposes. And hopefully that's going to work for you so that you can come out next, who are listening to this as the replay or over on Facebook, and understand the value that you bring simply by the presence you've got, to have flies being swat in that moment, when ultimately the truth is that there will be many distractions. There will be many things that come up to compete with your ability to show up for that next session. And ultimately, you can choose to go after the flies, or you can choose to be here live. And so you've got the time to make it happen for yourself and with us and our support. And we would love to have you be part of the community where Misfits Fit, Home for Soulful Seekers, on Facebook as well. So please be sure to join over there. And also know, right this morning, I got a message from a girlfriend I've co-hosted events with, Laura Marcos, who no longer has a Facebook account. And I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know how long mine is going to last. She had somebody that she was connected to, it happened to 10 days ago, and now it's her turn. And so none of us really know how long we're actually going to be able to share alternative perspectives. And the fly's back in my space, right? It's like there are a lot of competing energies. There are deceptive energies that are in our midst. And there is a huge call right now to stand in our sovereignty as holy beings, which means we need to call back all of ourselves from all of those past moments. So if you hadn't had a chance to listen to the meditation that I led in the last summit, please go back and listen to that. I know not many people have done so just yet because I've been posting so much other stuff. I haven't had a chance to say, this is the feature. And Tim did an amazing presentation as well about his 4-step process for reintegrating the inner child as well. So these sessions build off of what has come before it, what we've been through. Obviously, we use personal examples to highlight the lessons that we feel would be most beneficial for those to listen, those of you who are listening, to be able to apply to your own life and understand that everybody's different. We all have different needs. We all have different wants, desires, and ultimately, if we can simply honor what we need in that moment by tuning into the feeling that's showing up for us, and then decide to just move one level up at a time, it's hugely powerful. And our power is truly within us. Fail to go within, you will go without. Final words, Tim, before we close it off?
Again, I just want to thank everyone for watching and being part of this. And I look forward to our next adventure.
I love it. Woohoo! Chantal, thank you for showing up.
Thank you for hosting. It was awesome.
Yay! I appreciate you so much. And each of you, truly, I am very grateful to have Lightworkers, fellow Earth Angels who are here, who are standing up, who are advocating for ourselves and being able to build ourselves before what's coming. Because when what's coming comes, truly people are going to be looking for the lighthouses like us, who are willing to shine bright like a diamond, even though it might not necessarily be comfortable when the coal is being turned into that beautiful spectacle that then gets worn on someone's ring. Well, I don't really want to be worn on anyone's ring finger, but at the same time, we are those diamonds. And whatever gets done with the diamond, ultimately we're responsible for becoming the diamond. And from there, use us for the light. May we be used for the greatest and highest good. And also remember about the significance of ceremony in the sacred. And that being how we reverse the order of the C in scared. That we take the scared into a sacred experience by lighting some sage and Palo Santo and pine and whatever it is that clears the space and makes space for energy to move. I meant to do that at the beginning of today, and then we got distracted with the technologies and things. So I am grateful that it wasn't necessarily required, and yet it's an option. And that's what today has been too. So hopefully you found a few cues that you can use in moments where you're feeling triggered and called out of the now moment, and can then choose to say, okay, what am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? And what am I going to do about it? And really take your power back intentionally, consciously, and use the tools that you have access to, which include us as resources. So reach out on Where Misfits Fit, Home for Soulful Seekers, and we very much look forward to continuing to support you in the journey of ascension, the journey to enlightenment, and ultimately to becoming who you were the whole time. You just maybe forgot in the meantime.
Thank you.
Peace out, guys. Thank you. Or should I say, peace in.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.